Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about line art and inking and all that fun stuff. And honestly, my line art is probably the thing that gets commented on or like asked about the most. So I wanted to do a really quick video on it and like a few line art and inking basics and sort of stuff that I've learned and things that I use when I'm doing my inking. Just a little side note, I've never been to art school. I haven't really taken many art classes, so this is just what has worked for me and what I've figured out. I'm definitely not a master at this, and I definitely don't know all like the art lingo that there probably is around inking and inking techniques, so let's just ignore that. Um, Also, for this video, I'm just going to be talking about fine liners, so things like Copic multiliners and microns and stuff, and I definitely want to do another video on sort of brush pens, but for now, let's keep this one pretty concise and simple. And honestly, I could probably make a ton of videos just on inking because it's my favorite part of the drawing process. So anyway, I've tried to include a few like real-time speed clips to show you guys just how darn slow I am when it comes with line art. I don't know, I find inking really relaxing and you just gotta follow the pencil lines, and so it's kind of meditative, I guess. You don't really have to think about it too much, so I take my time with it. Um, but anyway, a few sort of ground rules with inking that I find are pretty important across the board. Obviously, keep your arm and hand loose. The more you like tense up, the harder it's going to be to get a smooth line. And now I realize like the last thing you think of doing when you're like at the moment of truth and you're putting permanent ink onto the drawing that you love, like relaxing is probably the last thing your brain's wanting to do because like it's scary. It totally gets intimidating, especially when you're doing like really long lines, because you don't want to mess up that drawing that you worked so hard on. Like, I get that, but seriously, just take a breath, relax. Trust me, you'll get a much, much, much better line for it. And one thing I do if I know I'm going to be doing a particularly important or difficult stroke is sometimes I'll like breathe out before I do the stroke and then kind of like hold my breath as I move the pen. It's kind of like a thing that you do in archery or anything that requires a lot of accuracy. And I guess it works with inking too. It seems kind of silly to compare it to that, but seriously, guys, like, don't hold your breath and pass out on me for not breathing. That would definitely be bad, but sometimes it can help sort of stabilize yourself for like a big line every now and then. Next point is to figure out like your most comfortable position for line art. So like for me, I'm most confident if I'm pushing the pen away from my body and kind of towards the right. And some people are more comfortable pulling the pen towards themselves. Just play around and find what is most comfortable for you, because that'll make it a whole lot easier. And that being said, don't be afraid to rotate the paper. Like, a lot. You'll see like in this video I'm literally turning the paper like all over the place, and I'm sorry if it's kind of like nauseating to watch and like, but this is what you do. And turning the paper gets, it into a more comfortable position so you can more comfortably pull that line off. Another thing that can help in certain situations is like different pen grips will help in like different situations. So for example, holding the pen kind of closer down towards the nib gives you more control, and that's really good if you're doing like small little details and things that you really want to have a lot of accuracy for. So if you're working on something small like say the features of the face, try holding the pen like further down and you'll have more control over it, especially for those small details. Now that being said, you do kind of restrict yourself if you're holding the pen super far down if you're doing like long sweeping lines. Um, so if you're doing longer lines, holding the pen further away from the nib will give you more fluidity. So if you're drawing like long curving strands of hair or something, try holding the pen further back. That could help a little bit. You do lose a little bit of control, but you get the fluidity. So it's like different situations will require different pen grips. And it's also worth noting, like, if you are doing a long line, like, using your full arm as a pivot instead of just your wrist will give you like a much, much, much smoother line. And another thing that is important to keep in mind is that you don't need to feel like you have to do a line in one go. Like, you can stop, rotate the paper, and like get in a more comfortable position and then continue the line. And you'll see me do this a lot in the video. And for me, it kind of takes the scariness out of it because you get a little reset and you don't need to worry about doing the whole line perfectly in one go. So that's always an option too. Okay, let's talk about line weight next. So with things like Fineliners, you're not going to get a lot of difference in line weight or like line thickness. And I mean, you can get a little bit if you like press really hard and then let up the pressure. You'll get a little bit of, difference in thickness, but it's not going to be as much as a brush pen. And I find that if you just kind of leave the line art as is, it ends up looking a little flat and kind of lacks dimension. So if you want more dynamic lines, if you're using a fine liner, you kind of have to go back in and add them as a second step, which is what I'm doing right now. So this is kind of how I think about where to add line weight. One, I make lines thicker if something is going underneath something else, or like where two corners meet, or something like that. So like in the hair, if two hair strands are coming together, it'd be thicker in the middle because one is overlapping the other. Where the neck meets the jawline, the top of the neckline would be a little bit thicker line weight because it's going underneath the jaw and it's kind of shadowed there. Or like where the legs meet a skirt, the legs are going under the skirt, so there's going to be a little shadow there, and that'll be thicker. The top of the line of the legs will be thicker. And you can kind of also play around with sending things further into the background or bringing things further into the foreground with line weight as well. So like an object with thicker line around it will be kind of pulled forward because more attention is drawn to it, and an object with like a thinner line will be sent to the back. So for example, in this drawing, I haven't gotten to it yet, but you'll see I line the floating water behind her in a really, really small, really thin pen because I wanted it to go to the back and not compete with her. I wanted her to obviously look like she was in front of it. And then I also kind of add thicker lines if it's a place where there would naturally be shadows. So for example, if you know the light source is coming from one side, you could thicken up the lines on the opposite side where there would be shadows. And I'll also just kind of go in and add line thickness, usually in areas where there's curves. I just kind of go by what feels right and what looks right, So just kind of play around with it and experiment and see what looks good. So that was pretty much the main inking tips that I have. Before we end the video though, I just want to go on a little side tangent about taking care of your eyes, and this is something that I want to make a whole video about because it's something I've struggled with and I think it's super important thing that not many artists talk about. I mean, like, your eyes are literally the thing you create art with, so be careful. Make sure you're looking up from your work and sort of focusing on something far away to relax your eyes, especially if you're inking or doing something that requires a lot of intense focus. It's really, really easy to strain your eyes if you're looking at something up close with a lot of intensity for a long period of time. And just don't be like me and ink with your face a few inches away from the paper. I've totally strained my eyes and I have to be like super careful now and remember to look up for my work or I'll get headaches and crap like that. And it's a really bad habit I'm trying to break, so don't be like Chelsea, guys. But anyway, hopefully that helped you guys a little bit for thinking about inking. Honestly, though, getting smooth lines, it just takes a lot of practice. So if you feel like your lines are shaky, just stick with it, keep practicing, and you will improve and your lines will get smoother and smoother over time, trust me. I know it can be like super intimidating to sit down and ink something when you're not super confident in yourself, but just remember that art is a journey and that by putting pen to paper now, even if you mess up a line or two, the next drawing will be better and the next one after that will be even better for it. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, that this one drawing isn't the culmination of your art career. It's just a step to a better you and a better artist, and it's definitely hard to take that step back and see the bigger picture in art, and it's really easy to fixate on the piece you're working on right now. But once you do, I think it's a lot easier to just let go and experiment and be more comfortable putting ink to paper. And honestly, that's how you're going to improve the fastest if you're drawing and playing and experimenting and having fun and all that cool stuff. So anyway, keep going guys, I'm rooting for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!